Brand new building. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Lots of deals, lots of tents here. Lots of vendors. Steve, you just gave me the thumbs up. Oh, you're good to go. I don't think you're good.
I'm okay with that. Can you hear okay, everybody? Loud and clear? Hey. Thank you to the Gorge Fly Shop and all the company that showed up. Give a big round to the new Gorge Fly Shop location. Wow, good deal. I feel like today's friends, beers, hot dogs, good fly fishing stories. I hope you're all having a good time. So I was invited to do a little demo this afternoon and sort of an advanced level, if you will. And I'll cover a few different categories of casting, sort of a trout outfit, a single-handed long distance, the old days of steelhead. How many of you remember 10-footer 7 or 10-footer 8 weight as your steelhead rod? I'm going to resurrect that rod for a good reason. We're going to talk about that. And then I have a couple of outfits for the shooting head. Monofilament behind the shooting head for long distance. I'm going to cover most of these in a sequence, covering almost like basics, but sort of pushing the envelope a little bit. Everybody here casts because they can form a loop, and everyone knows what a shape of a loop should be. It's that little U shape in the line, and we all learned as beginners, when you bend your wrist too much and your rod tip arcs too much, there's hardly any loop and it dies out. I used to call that the dying cobra cast, where the line goes way up and it just slithers down and dies. So we don't want that, but when you can make the rod tip track nearly a straight line, we form a narrow profile loop, and that's really what we want. Almost all of us are kind of familiar with that concept, and we kind of work at it a little bit, but really that's the essence of all of these skills in casting hinge around your control of the loop. So let's talk more about control of loop as anything. So it's a combination of getting the rod to bend against a tight backcast. Yeah, that thing that's behind you, the backcast. That's probably the most lacking skill collectively in this audience, is the backcast ability. If you can nail a perfect loop going into the backcast, where that loop is narrow and tight and the line extends, guess what? If that line is tight and extends, you're going to be able to bend the rod, and once you feel the bending of the rod, you can decide whether to form the tight loop if you want, or widen out the loop if you want, or project your line, aim it, but it all stems from that backcast having a tight loop, and placing the backcast is what we call the 180 rule. If you're going to cast short, you want your backcast high, 180 degrees. If you're going to cast 100 feet away, it's the opposite, a little higher in the front, a little lower in the back. We control that loop height with our hand, what we call the casting stroke. When we want to elevate the back cast, it's good to elevate the elbow an inch or two and lower it as you come forward. This will raise up and lower the front cast, raise up the back. To make that tighter, narrow loop in the back cast, we want to focus energy in a concentrated stop. It's like you're coming into a brick wall and your hand hits the brick wall. So you're coming into the back cast, boom, and you bump into the wall. That will release the energy in a tight way, focusing a narrow loop. I would think most people here initiate the back cast thinking, okay, bend the rod a lot, and then throw it back there. What that will do is tend to widen out the loop and cause it to dip down and have slack in the back cast. With slack in the back cast, it's very difficult to feel the rod bend and have a good cast coming forward. So making your back cast loop should be everyone's real practice keynote, is to learn to stop it and then drift back as needed for the length of your cast. Short casts, you don't hardly need to drift at all. A little short stop, and then that's all you need for a short cast, no drifting. Drifting is this, when you extend the arm motion going back. As we lengthen out the line, we stop, and lengthen out the backstroke a little bit. Stop, backstroke. Even with this little stiff piece we have here, it is totally possible to manage 50, 60 feet of line and still have a good controlled cast so long as we have that tight back cast. You see that line extending? that's the strength of my whole casting technique, is the ability to make a loop that extends even into a stiff wind. So control for accuracy or control for distance. So loops, one more time on loops. The closer the end of your rod tip here goes to a straighter path, you get a better narrow cast, and that rod tip is not going straight on arcing, and it makes a giant loop. The one kind of common mistake we all make too is where that loop collapses into itself called a tailing loop, and it snarls and makes a knot in your leader. That's the tailing loop. So what happened there was this tip didn't go straight, it didn't even go arcing above. This tip went underneath of the straight line, and it tangled up the line called tailing the loop. This is a common effect for a couple of main reasons, but over-shocking the rod is one of them, where you kind of cast it and you can punch power suddenly. There I put a beautiful nail of a tangle knot right into my line, and it doesn't straighten out. If you shock it, that rod bends too much, and it collapses the tip into a dip, and it causes that tailing loop. Partially, another reason is to not have the stroke in harmony with how much line you carry. In a short cast, say 20 feet, the casting stroke is a couple of inches. And let's just drill this tailing loop. I think everybody could benefit from this. Join me for a second. Put your first finger out, pretend you're casting along my side, and you're going to match my cast. Very short motion, 20-foot cast. Good. As I lengthen out the line, make your hand travel farther. And now we get out to 50 feet, pretty far, behind your ear, and almost a full extension of your arm. So you feel the difference? Let's go back into that short cast, 20 feet. Right here, 20 feet, everybody, 20 feet. Now here's what's going to go wrong is you keep lengthening it out and you stay with that 20-foot cast. See what's happening? All of a sudden I can't manage that line anymore. There's a tailing loop and your eyes go. Balance your stroke with how much line you're carrying. If you see that line trailing and you think it's because you're not punching at it, experiment with your length of your casting stroke. And that extends all the way out into these long tournament casts that we sometimes play with. With a 5-weight line, we have an event called the 5-weight distance event, or also it's called trout distance at the World Championships. And with just a 5-weight line, we're extending 120, 30, 40 this summer. That's 5-weight. It's better than that. But what we're doing is making a super long casting stroke and making a tight line loop in the back to aerialize this long length of line. There we go. Here we go. That's better. Didn't have enough line off the reel. Would have gone further. And did you notice the shape of that last loop? It wasn't like a rounded loop like this. Here's the secret for those 120, 30, and 40-foot casts, where if you're at 100, you want to shoot for a little bit more. We got to learn how to make that loop more of a V. So to make a more rounded loop, it's to stop and not drift forward, but just literally lock it. And that rod tip kind of bounces down and recovers up. The line goes over the tip and forms a fairly rounded shaped loop. Let me reel a part of this in. Do a rounded shaped loop. For fishing, this is more than adequate. Trout fishing, this is what I would advocate, is a more rounded loop, very few snarls and tangles, and I'm just sort of like just stopping my hand. But to get more and more of that V-shaped loop for those longer casts, as soon as you stop, drift into it a couple inches, which extends the tip along that straight line path. It doesn't tug below it. So the more that you can stop and extend the tip through the straight line path puts more of that pointy loop and helps you to knife through the air for more distance. So here's a rounded loop, stopping it. Here's the V loop. You see the difference? I'm stopping it now, rounded loop. If I stop and extend, I get more of that V-shaped loop. So so you just stop inch ahead, 2-3 inches on a shorter cast, maybe as much as a foot on these 90-foot casts, as long as you can aerialize. So we talked a little bit about loop, a little bit about stroke. Another thing that's key in watching your cast is the trajectory. Here's your aim point. We talked about the 180 rule. So trajectory is like if I'm fishing on a little trout stream and I'm casting close in, I'll be lifting and lowering more than I am front and back. I'm lifting and lowering to elevate the back cast. Just let it unfold. Hopefully drop right into your target. Close out. There you go. Come on, get in there. Oh, well, eventually it'll get there. But lifting and lowering is to elevate the back cast. Hand out, raise up a little bit. Think about with your elbow. Take your other hand and touch your elbow. Lift your elbow a little bit and lower the elbow. This sets up for a high back cast, low front cast, and this is what we want on shorter distances. As soon as we start to extend the stroke and go farther and farther, this elbow doesn't lift up, it stays level, and the hand travels more in a straight line path as well to elongate the stroke. And that helps to flatten the trajectory. That's what we want there. And also, another ingredient throughout all these kinds of casts is your ability to control the line speed. And it's referred to a lot in rod building and line tapers and so forth to achieve better line speed. Often it's higher line speed. So when it's not windy, it's really cool to cast slow. Just the wind isn't going to blow it around, so we use slow and soft. Makes real soft landings, really beautiful presentations, just what we want. When the wind is howling, in order to control the cast, you might have to do double the speed just to get it to cut through the wind and still end up where you want. So let's talk about that for a little bit. Put your first finger out and cast with me, slow line speed. Just a real slow cast. No wind. In fact, momentarily there's hardly any breeze. But now here's a little bit more wind, pick it up. Okay, now it's really windy in the afternoon, like this morning, it was howling through here. You'd have to go this fast just to do the same distance. So controlling your line speed relative to the air conditions, the wind, and also for safety on those kinds of windier scenarios, we don't want to keep the rod perpendicular. It's better to lower it over to the side. We call slanting the rod, keeping the rod off to the side. So instead of this, it's now tilt the wrist. The elbow just barely tucked in towards your center line a little bit, and you've slanted the rod out to the side. Now you can still do the front to the back in the same fashion, but it's tilted. And now lo and behold, that line stays away from you, and more, all the way over to a flat, plane position. That's what we want if we got a howling side wind. And that's pretty comfortable to cast. When it's so bad that it's still whacking your rod or you're going to get hit, you'll tilt the rod to the opposite shoulder, but do not crisscross your arm in front of your body. If you do that, it's okay for 20 feet, but as soon as you want to cast farther, what happens? There's no room to go back. In the farther cast with a crosswind, you want to leave the rod above your head, tilting it over. Now the wind is blowing that sort of direction, helping to keep it away. And now you can still reach far enough back and get the cast to go. So that's all good. And you can still make quite long casts over your opposite shoulder that way. The line speed business that we did is possible just with the arm only, which we just did as a short to medium cast, 20, 30 feet. No requirement, just how fast and how strong are you. We're trying to make good timing, which is to let the line straighten still. You want it to straighten on the front, straighten on the back, straighten on each side, and that way we can bend the rod and have good control. If you rush it, you get ahead of it, there's no more bending and it's going to just collapse. So allowing the time for the line to extend totally is what we want, even if we're going really quick. Even if it's fast, you still have to have that sense of time to let it unfold. To also increase line speed in the absolute direction all casters gravitate to is using what we call the double haul with the other hand. The left hand here is my double haul hand, and it increases the bend of the rod. So normally we would just cast like this and the rod bends so much against the tightness of the line, but with the haul, it bends the rod more going back and it bends it more going forward. So this hauling motion is known as the double haul, When you go back cast and front cast, those are the double, front and haul. You can haul it only on the back if you want to, or you could also just haul it going forward, but typically we're going to do it in series. And altogether, this would be known as double haul casting. So it's bending the rod more than it would have, and depending on how violently or how hard, how smoothly, how softly, it affects how much extra bend you put into the rod and how much extra line speed. So if I'm really going fast, I can double haul hard and quick and time it real fast, and I don't care how hard the wind is blowing. I can still make that bonefish might fly at the end of this carpet at 25 to 40 mile an hour wind. I don't care. If you can double haul, time it, get that line speed. But until that point where you can get line speed, it's a struggle. So it's really good practice to learn to double haul well. And the best way to do it, to learn and improve, is not to have a rod in your hand. I don't see anybody with a rod in your hand. You're ready to go. Put your two hands in front of your body like this. Imagine you have a rod in one hand, line is in the other. You make your back cast right now. Raise up the rod, take your line hand and move it out to the side, about like a foot and a half, 2 feet. So just spread your hands apart. Back cast is going back. While the line is looping back, we want to return this line that we've pulled. So the two hands are together here at your back cast position. Now as you go forward, you want to spread your hands apart going forward and return the line that you've pulled and repeat the whole cycle. Okay, here we go. Spread the hands going back, return the line up, and pull going forward, return the line up. Okay, good. Now, everybody gets that basic idea. The hardest thing of that sequence is once you pull, is to remember to pull the line back up into the guides. Y'all are good at this. And then you go, ooh, it's like it doesn't bend anymore going forward. You have to pull apart, get it up here so that you got some tightness and bending the rod, bending it more and pull. So here's a drill that helps. Put your left hand out or your holding of the line hand. Everybody join me. Put your line holding hand out here. And you go like this. And you can say to yourself, softly is good. Bounce. Bounce. Make that pull and bounce it like that. Bounce it. Bounce it. Okay, stop. Put the rod next to it. And as you make your next back cast, think to yourself, bounce. And go like this. Bounce. And front cast. Bounce. 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 There you go. Okay. Now, you add that together with a real rod. Doesn't have to be hard, but think to yourself, bounce. 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 And you got it. You're on your way to double hauling. How much double haul? How far? How fast? It's in proportion to the length of the line and how much power you need. If you're casting short distances, or even trout stream fishing, 5X, 6X tippet. Sometimes we need long tippet to make the presentation and a better free drift, but it's hard to false cast because that tippet is lazy, doesn't want to turn out straight. We can actually add a 6-inch double haul. Join me like this, 6 inches. 6 inches double haul. That's a trout cast with a 4-weight line and a size light leader. Okay, last cast, drop it, you're done. With a heavier rod, 7-8 weight, a streamer fly, a clouser, a woolly bugger on the lake, we're more of a mid-zone stroke, maybe 40 feet of line, roughly where that heavy belly of the line is, and it transitions to the thin part, the weight forward, the thin running line. Here's a more comfortable medium stroke where your pulling is like 2 feet. Everyone go like this, 2 feet of stroke, like about this much. And match my cast right now. That's a double haul for a weight forward line with 35, 45 feet. Last cast, shoot it, and you let it go. And if you're in front of a crowd of folks and you're supposed to show off, you get to make a bigger double haul. So one more of these long casts, hopefully. And what we're going to do is step the right foot back as a right-handed caster to open up your stance to make it easier for the longer stroke. And it'll make it possible for a longer haul. So we actually spread our feet apart with longer lengths of line corresponding to longer lengths of casting stroke. I'm trying to aerialize more and more line. And get out there. So anyway, while I went through the guys, that's pretty good. So anyhow, that's what you do with long length of double haul. It could be this much, It can be this much, and it can be a long double haul, depending on how much line you're aerializing, and increasing your line speed is the name of that game. So we've been using what we call weight forward lines. They're continuous taper lines. That's 99% of all fly casting with a single-handed rod is done that way. But there is a small category of lines that's a lot of fun to use for continuous longer distance casts. Most of us around this neighborhood are familiar with spay rods and spay fishing, and a very popular Skagit line use a shooting head line of sorts. But most of these shooting heads were actually developed by tournament casters a long time ago. Jimmy Green, the original Fenwick rod designer back in, he was the Fenwick rod designer in the 60s, 70s, 80s, yeah, thank you. And he chopped off a weight forward line, and in the day, nylon line was just becoming available after World War II. He decided to do monofilament connected to the shooting head. Nice, thank you, Tim. And so he figured out, well, hey, our fly lines are pretty good, and we wax them or we graphited them. In the old days, they used to do black powder graphite on the fly line to make it slide better. These people had black lines all over their hands when they were finished. It was really hilarious. But Jimmy figured out, let's put monofilament behind the fly line. So he was practicing one day and he did something like about like this, where he goes back and forth. This last one, he let it go. Oh, it's good. But he was so fit of a running line behind the fly line, offering very little resistance, it became effortless to make these long casts. So Jimmy was doing this as a member of the San Francisco Golden Gate Angling Casting Club, and well, he used this to win the World Casting Championships and the National back-to-back. So he really popularized it within a year. Everybody else knew.